Welcome everybody to the 18th episode of Comic DNA. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing Uncanny X-Men issue number 205, which is a one-shot story titled Wounded Wolf, written by Chris Claremont and illustrated by Barry Windsor-Smith, published by Marvel Comics in 1986. I am Aaron Walther, and with me as always is Luke Thompson-Moritz.
Hello, thank you.
And we have a special guest today, Mr. Ed Bickford. Ed, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Ed is an illustrator from Kansas City. We've met a few times at Planet Comic-Con. This episode is going to air the Wednesday after this year's Planet Comic-Con. So we will have, by the time this episode is on the website, we will have already hung out again in Kansas City after the convention.
That's cool.
Yes, but Ed is a fantastic artist, and he draws cool robots and aliens and stuff, so...
Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. So anyway, anybody who has listened to this podcast before, you may have heard the episode we did on Weapon X by Barry Windsor-Smith. That's his graphic novel about Wolverine's origin. This issue is sort of a precursor to that, in spirit at least, not necessarily in continuity. Wounded Wolf tells the story of Wolverine being hunted through New York by Lady Deathstrike and her cyborg companions. And during the vicious battle, he stumbles across Katie Power, the 5-year-old member of the Power Pack, and she tries to help him basically just survive as all these cyborg mercenaries are trying to kill her. So, Ed, are you a big fan of the Chris Claremont X-Men books from the 80s?
Totally. This is what I was introduced to in junior high school. Was Wolf. I never heard of Wolverine until some guys from art class brought in the comic, and I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome!"
Yeah.
And it got me hooked. And that was when Chris Claremont was writing those books.
Mm-hmm.
But this is probably this is the most memorable story I remember from the X-Men. It was just totally awesome.
Yeah, I think it's. I've talked before, like how difficult it is to kind of sum up the X-Men, because like Chris Claremont had such a long run. I mean, it was like 17 years, right? Am I correct? Like, yeah,
it was quite a while.
Yeah, it was like because it was like 70, like mid to late 70s till 91 when he was unceremoniously kicked off the book. But so he'd been writing the X-Men for a long time. So it's always hard to describe. Like I always kind of say, like it all averages out to be really pretty good. Like there's like really good segments and then not so good segments. But this issue is probably one of the most memorable issues, maybe one of the best. And that's certainly I would have to say personally from my point of view, just because of Barry Windsor-Smith. Like I'm a huge fan of Barry Windsor-Smith, and he just knocks this issue out of the park with the art.
With no doubt about it. I mean, the story was great, but it's just his iconograph. I can't say anything. I got a sinus infection. Yeah, and his art just totally made that story. It was just just the way he draws faces. You know, his distinct style and his grit and the blood splatters and stuff. He just Yeah, it definitely. I mean, this is all stuff. I'm probably kind of repeating myself from our Weapon X podcast, but like
so far so good. Yeah. It's not too bad.
Not too bad. Yeah,
I'm keeping track.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, because he there's like a grittiness, like you said, and he brings a realism to like his characters, but it's still very much comic art.
Yeah,
it's not.
I think
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as an artist, sometimes what I found out is a lot of times the more abstract some of the shapes are, the more realistic it looks.
Mm-hmm. And
if you see some of the facial expressions and how abstract and twisted they are, I mean, they look real because they're so abstract.
Yeah, Scott McCloud's book, Understanding Comics, he kind of talks about that. How, like, the less, like you're saying, like, the more abstract it is, the more the human brain like imprints on it and just instantly recognizes it. So yeah, I think you kind of get a lot of that with Windsor-Smith's, because there's like a lot of his faces, like it's not like realistically rendered, you know, but it just looks so real, just with a few lines here and there, just to cast shadow over the face, you know.
Exactly. It's. I would actually say it's more realistically rendered because he does that instead of the overworking of the hatching and the drawing. Because as a painter, you get that one stroke to make that one curve of the face or the cheek. You know, you don't have to sit there and hatch with a pencil or whatever for lines. And that's why I feel like he's almost like painting with that how he did it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean the dude's a master. Like, you know.
I remember he was doing Conan, and I copied one of his Conan pictures, and I painted it on the back of a jean jacket back in high school, and I wore that around for a while.
Oh man, that would be cool.
It was really cool because I copied the way he drew the face because he has that like. It wasn't very angular. It was very organic. You know, the cheekbone was very pronounced cheekbones and stuff, and it was very organic.
Yeah.
And, I had that on the back of a jean jacket. I had painted, I think, with acrylic paint, which cracked in the wintertime, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
And then I remember, I think it was in Heavy Metal or someplace you could actually buy like a manila envelope for little prints from him. I think it was. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he was doing that for a while.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would have been a cool jacket.
It was. I think I gave it to my girlfriend, and who knows what happened to it now.
When I was in high school, or maybe just after high school, I took a hoodie. And I took a red Sharpie, or I should say multiple red Sharpies, which was not the best method for doing this. But I recreated the logo from Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh boy!
The nerve with the half leaf, and then the phrase on the like curving around the bottom of it. God's in His heaven and all's right with the world. I forget which poem that's from. I'm totally ruining my intelligent genius writer credibility here, but yeah, I wore that for a long time just like because it was cool looking, but I still have that in a closet somewhere. Needless to say, the hoodie it was a gray hoodie, and it started to turn pink because because it was a Sharpie, and and I wash it, so
yes, that happens.
It's not quite lasting, but it was cool at the time.
I had like a cartoon of this one dog I named Mumsford, and he has a switchblade on the shirt, and it says, "Here, kitty, kitty." And I remember I did that Sharpie, and of course, eventually it started turning yellow and eating through the shirt.
Yeah,
that was back before they were acid-free, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, Barry Windsor-Smith is just if he just did something Kickstarter, because that way he would have full control of the writing and everything like that.
That's what he would want, to make
somebody with his skill, it is. I mean, if you think about everything that he draws, he already has in his head when he's reading the script. What's it's like a director from a movie.
Yeah.
He already knows the details and the color and the mood and all that. And when you start having an editor interfere with that, then the whole vision that the artist is trying to create gets all amuck,
Yeah.
So I can understand that, but also then sometimes you gotta bite your lip and just
you gotta compromise.
Push through it.
Well, it's the give and take of work for hire.
Yeah, and they don't have. Back then they didn't have like what they have now, where you get your feet wet doing a couple books for Marvel or DC or some publisher, make a name for yourself after a couple books, and then just start doing self-publishing. They didn't have that back in the 80s and the 90s. Well,
exactly. If you wanted to publish a new book, you did it through Marvel, and you gave away all your characters because they wouldn't do it otherwise. Yeah. And it was. The whole like self-publishing thing was still not like you had indie books, like that was the big boom, in the 80s with the self-publishing stuff, but it was still very very rough, not as like easy to accomplish nowadays. Like you're saying, nowadays, like the most popular writers working at Marvel all have like 2 books in Image. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's definitely changed a lot since his day. Yeah, but anyway, so this X-Men comic book that we were talking about, that book. So, Luke, you've not read a lot of X-Men stuff,
yes.
Correct? You read the Weapon X for the podcast, so you're pretty familiar with Barry Windsor-Smith then. It's a standalone issue, but it's still kind of like there's still like continuity going on, I guess you could say.
It's sort of in the same. I almost want to say vein, almost in the same vein, but I even asked you prior to starting the episode if this was a sequel, because I thought it was so similar in some spots. But
yeah, it's actually like 5 years before Weapon X. Yeah, but what I like about this issue is it's a complete standalone story, and it has nothing to do with the two issues. Like issue 204 and issue 206 have nothing to do with it. So it really is like just this beautiful one shot. But there is still a lot of continuity of the time going on. So like this book was not the first appearance of Lady Deathstrike. I
was going to ask
like
about
the character.
Okay.
But it is the first appearance of her as the cyborg that we all know her to be today.
Yes.
And that was designed by Barry Windsor-Smith, the classic, knife fingers and the red hair. So that was the first appearance of that. That the very first page was her being turned into the cyborg, and the character of Spiral. That was the woman who was turning her into the cyborg. Right.
Yep.
So that's where you start to get into like some serious, not even just X-Men continuity, but just like Marvel 80s continuity. Because Spiral is a part of the Mojo universe, the Mojoverse. Does she work for Mojo? I think she does, because like Mojo's like in charge of like that universe. That was like
I thought Spiral was like his henchman or something.
His henchman or something to that effect, yeah. So that was
when you read Long Shot. Long Shot came out about that time too.
Yep. Yeah, Long Shot came out of the Mojoverse. A lot of this was all stuff from that. Let's see, because Louise Simpson. No, you know what? She didn't. I don't think. No, it was Ann Niketti that did Long Shot, and she created a lot of the Mojo stuff. So never mind. Louise Simpson though created the Power Pack, and Katie Power is the other like guest character in this issue. So that's why I was thinking of Louise Simpson. But yeah, so there was a lot of stuff going on in the 80s at Marvel with this like the weird stuff in this issue that isn't really a part of like the regular current continuity. I mean, like the Mojo universe and the Power Pack are two things that are very specifically 80s Marvel comics that they occasionally get like brought up or talked about, but the Power Pack have pretty much been nothing since the book stopped getting published in like 91 maybe. It was pretty much strictly an 80s thing. And Mojo, X-Men, he shows up in X-Men every now and then because he's a fun villain. I do really like the Mojo universe, Mojo, and and Long Shot. I like all those characters. But anyway, so I guess what I was getting at was it's this book is like so like it's such an 80s book, and there's like all this weird kind of like little continuity references, but I think it really works as a standalone story.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, because I like the way you're just thrown into it, and like all of these sort of like revenge violence, like the meat of the issue is Wolverine fighting Lady Deathstrike, right? Like that's what we're seeing. Yeah. And the Reavers, I was actually reading. They didn't actually call them the Reavers in this issue. I think the Reavers is the group that those guys joined up with after the events of this.
Oh,
but I'm not super.
Got Reese. The guy's name's Reese, and
Reese and Macon. Yeah. I think maybe they become the Reavers. Then they're never called the Reavers in this issue.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, but they eventually team up with they join the Reavers. But I know I always called them the Reavers too, and then I was rereading the issue and I was like, oh, they don't actually ever call them the Reavers. I gotta recheck.
Right, because when you said that, I was like, that doesn't sound familiar. I don't think I saw that in the book.
Yeah.
So.
Huh.
Yeah, but yeah, it was Lady Deathstrike and those guys who eventually became the Reavers are hunting and trying to kill Wolverine. Like, that's lots of action. It looks great, but what really makes the story work is that it's told from the point of view of a different character, Katie Power.
Oh yeah.
So, and Katie Power is the 5-year-old member of the Power Pack. And now, Luke, I know you have no idea what Power Pack is, correct?
Not even a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Not even a little bit. So the Power Pack was a book that ran through the 80s about a group of siblings. They're all kids, and they all get superpowers. And so it's like this like superhero family thing, and
sounds like Fantastic Four.
Katie is. It's similar to Fantastic Four. In fact, it gets to the point where Franklin Richards joins the Power Pack at a certain point. Exactly. Well, they got to find something.
Right.
For him to do.
Until they make it ridiculous. But.
Yeah. But I don't know, Ed. Did you ever read any of the Power Pack books? Were they a little too lame for you?
I used to think they were really lame, and then I bought a few books after this story because I'm like, oh wow. But I think they were trying to. Back in the '80s, I mean, you had a lot of stuff like. Remember, there was a movie called Six Pack, where the guy, who was it? Was it Kenny Rogers raced a race car, or somebody raced a race car, and they had the pack of kids that they inherited that fixed cars.
Yeah.
And they had all those you had Cloak and Dagger, which was Henry Thomas and Danby Coleman, and you had a lot of kids doing stuff like remember Daryl? Daryl was like a robot. He was a kid and stuff. So I think they tried to fulfill that kind of role in comics by having a group of kids do stuff instead, and probably maybe get a younger audience. And I always thought it looked really lame. I mean, I'm like in my early teens or so, and I'm like, oh, I'm not. After this, I bought a couple, and I was like, oh, that's all right, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't enough blood and guts and gore and grind.
Right. Yeah. I didn't read a lot of Power Pack books, but I did like the series. I had like a handful of issues, like pretty much whenever whenever they would have like a guest star in an issue, there's issues with Spider-Man in them, I would get those and read those because I like Spider-Man, and I kind of liked them. Like they're fun. They're like you said, they were definitely like trying to capture a kid audience, but I think they worked really well. Like dealing with they were like portraying kids, but I think they dealt with a lot of like adult situations. It didn't ever feel like it was just like talking down. Like it didn't feel like it was a book for kids.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem you have now whenever people talk about like kids don't read comics, so let's make this baby comic about a book for kids, and it looks like it was written by guys in suits who have never talked to kids before, and they're just like, kids like ponies, right? We'll just put a bunch of like dumb ponies eating cake and drinking lemonade, and that's for kids, and like that was not a knock on that thing that's really popular now, My Little Pony. I didn't even.
I think it was subconsciously.
I didn't even think about that. It might have subconsciously been a knock on My Little Pony. It just occurred to me that I was like, oh, ponies eating cake. Like there has to be an episode of. I've never seen that stupid show, but there has to be.
See, you say that you're not knocking it, and you just called it stupid, so you're not helping the case.
I'm really digging myself into a hole here. I don't actually feel any way strongly about that show.
But no, just from what you explained about Power Pack, it seems like you said they kind of deal with some adult themes in it, right? It seems like that's a good way for to introduce kids to those things in a way they can digest much easier.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I noticed at the end of this issue, there was a little PSA of Spider-Man and the Power Pack deal with sexual abuse.
Yeah, that's the one where they're like, Spider-Man's like, and remember, whatever happens, it's not your fault.
Right. So that was what I thought the Power Pack was just like a big PSA.
Just a big PSA.
Don't do
drugs. I think the book's a little better than that.
Okay, that's good.
But it's definitely like for a kid audience. Right. I think one of the neat things about the book was that the kids all had superpowers, but they all maintained secret identities. So like their parents didn't know they were superheroes.
Spy Kids before Spy Kids.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. And it's funny because like the Spy Kids franchise, like everybody loves that. Like it was pretty successful. Ed, you got kids.
My kids.
Your kids
I
really
have
love
Netflix,
Spy Kids.
And I don't know how many times I've seen those. But the thing is, also, if you think about it, do you know who makes those movies? Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, Robert Rodriguez.
I was watching it with my kids one time. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's Machete! Machete's
the Machete, yeah." Machete actually first appeared in Spy Kids, which makes it the first time. I think it's the first time an R-rated character spun out of a G-rated movie.
How surreal!
Like technically, Machete is like a spin-off of Spy Kids because the character was in Spy Kids as Machete. Like that's who he was. And then they made the Machete movies, and they're like rated R, blood, gore, kill fests. So technically, it's an R-rated spin-off of a G-rated movie.
Kind of like the Max. The Marvel. Remember that for a while? Marvel had the Max, where they had was supposed to be more.
Oh yeah, the Max imprint of lines of comics. Yes.
So you had the Power Pack, and then the Power Pack meet the Punisher, and then you had the Punisher Max.
Yeah, exactly. But I do like that, because I do think that there's Punisher's a good example. I think there are room for different interpretations of the Punisher. Like Punisher can exist in the Marvel universe and not be a guy who's brutally maiming and killing people. He can still be gritty in the context of a Power Pack book. And you can have the Max books where you have Garth Ennis just go nuts and have him strangle people with their intestines and whatever was going on in those books. I read a few of them. They're good.
I had the miniseries when it came out in the 80s. I had 2 stacks of comic books when I joined the Air Force about waist high, because I didn't know I didn't know anything about bagging and boarding back then, and I inherited a bunch of comic books from when my step grandfather he passed away, and he had a lot of old Tales from the Crypt and Silent Night and Superman and all this Rawhide Kid and all these old comics, and I inherited them. And I joined.
Oh, do you still have them?
No, I joined the military, and my brothers drew in them and did all that and ripped them up and all kinds of stuff. So they were.
Oh no!
I had ridiculous comics. I had almost all the G.I. Joes and all the Transformers back then, and Scarlet and Vision and Scarlet Witch and all kinds of stuff, man.
That's
it is. I was so mad. I was like, I didn't give those to you guys to do that, That's why those two boys are the reason why comics are so expensive now for the old ones.
That's right, because they all got destroyed, because they were disposable back then.
I was so mad.
And now everything is well preserved in polyvinyl bags with cardboard to make sure that nothing gets bent, and they're all worthless.
They are,
because there's so many of them.
Yes.
If you want to make your comics valuable, this is a supervillain plot that I'm sure has been done at some point. Is that somebody should go around destroying other people's collections of things so that his collection will be the most valuable one.
Dibs.
Dibs. If somebody hasn't done that, then you got to get on that. Seriously. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I think makes the story so good and 205 is I think it was Brad Bird that works for Pixar was telling you the great success to make it a good story, and one was the false victory. And what happens? There's one point where Wolverine's running around and he gets blasted point blank by one of the guys, and the guy's leaning over him he goes, man, I got him. He goes, there's no way he could have survived that point blank blast. And then Wolverine goes, guess again, chump. And he goes, snicked. And puts his not just his claws, his whole fist to the guy.
He puts his whole arm right through the guy.
I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, to this day, I still think that's probably one of the most awesomest scenes I've ever seen. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, there's so many cool scenes like that.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the things I wrote down in my notes, just how many of those there were.
Oh, he did such a great job writing this. And then also at the end when Lady Deathstrike's like, kill me, and he's like, snicked, earn it.
Yeah. You gotta earn it. Like, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of stories that Chris Claremont likes to tell. Like the whole, like honor and what it means to be a man and cycle of violence. These are definitely... They are recurring themes in the X-Men, but at a certain point, they really just all become like Wolverine's story. Just this recurring theme of, what is a warrior and how are warriors supposed to live their lives, things like that. Yeah, exactly. They adapt the whole samurai thing to Wolverine, because this is also sort of like a. I mean, this isn't the first time that, because Wolverine's speaking Japanese in this issue. I guess one of the things I like about this book, not to get derailed from what I was just about to say, but it does it's such a almost like a greatest hits of Wolverine in this book. You know, because it's just like everything you want out of Wolverine is in this issue. Because you're thrown into this fight, into this battle, and Wolverine is like already like lost. You know, like you're thrown into the end of the fight. All the Reavers are running around saying like he should be dead by now. How can he be moving after all the stuff that we've you know done to him and shot him up with? And then like you get that big reveal where he's standing there in the blizzard and he just looks like hell. You know, like
and half his costume's missing. I mean, he's always
exactly
like boots on, right?
Exactly, yeah. He looks like he's been thrown through the blender, and he's like in full feral mode.
Oh, yeah.
Like he can't even talk. You know, he's just like he doesn't even know what's going on, and that's what makes having Katie Power as the point of view character so perfect, because you have like a like somebody that you sympathize with to sort of like counterbalance like Wolverine's going over the edge.
Oh yeah, because.
And I love also, and this is also another thing that Chris Claremont, I think, understood and definitely kind of kept doing, is that Wolverine works really well with like having a young girl partner. Because you have this issue with Katie Power, and she's kind of been teamed up with him before, like because that was also the implication. They knew each other, like she knew who he was.
Yeah, because she called him Mr. Logan. Mr. Logan?
Yeah, she knows who he is. They've teamed up before with the Power Pack, and then like of course Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat, they had that thing going on, and then when
Jubilee,
and then when Kitty Pryde moved away from the X-Men, they brought in Jubilee, and Jubilee became like the young girl sidekick. But like one of the recurring things of Wolverine is that he sort of falls into this father mode for like young girls.
Yeah, because he did that for Rogue too, didn't he? I thought for a while.
Yeah, he was even doing it for Rogue. Yeah, when they first brought in Rogue, they had this weird kind of relationship going on. But Wolverine automatically falls into this like mentor/father role, and it's really easy to adapt that to young women who are looking for like a male role model in their lives. And Wolverine is all that is man.
That's true.
See, that's why I go back to the samurai thing, because you always see the old samurai guy, and he's like, I mean, he's just just cold, calculated stuff, but he's still got that
stone
face.
Has
that kind of like Leon the Professional. I mean,
yes.
Oh, good definitely. Example. That's a perfect example. Like, young girl with
and it brings the humanity out in the animal, kind of the animal killer, the feralness, the young female for him to protect, and
yeah, it just works so well with Wolverine, and that is like all in this issue, because it's the young girl. She runs into Wolverine accidentally, and he's insane, and like there's their moment where he like almost attacks her, like he pops his claws out, and she doesn't know what's going on. She thinks he's gonna kill her, but she's the one who like encourages him to keep fighting, and kind of like she brings him back from the brink.
Yeah, basically. Helps him get where he can recover.
Yeah, it's a good it's such a good character dynamic, because there's that trade off where like she like helps him, and then like he has to completely like protect her, and he switches from the helpless role back into the mentor role when he like when they're cornered, and he like starts giving her orders, and he's like, do this thing, just sit there, close your eyes, and don't listen to anything, and he like makes her hide, and then he goes and gets into the knockdown drag out fight with Lady Deathstrike.
That scene got me whenever he came up over to her and said, you can look again.
You can open your eyes now. Yeah.
What's interesting about this book is like it's got feral Wolverine, which I made note of in the Weapon X podcast about how that is the Wolverine I wanted, right? I love that feral, crazy Wolverine, but then it gives us like you said, the mentor Wolverine. So it's got both of them in there to like satisfy both audiences.
Yeah,
which I think is neat.
And I like too that like there's always a danger when you are playing around with the animalistic nature of Wolverine, and there's always a danger of making it like too cool. Yeah. It's just like, oh, he's gonna go into feral mode and kill everybody, and that's what saves the day. And I really liked how in this issue, like it was like a bad thing that he was like in feral mode.
It was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. It was dangerous for him and everyone around him, and he couldn't think like a man. He was just this wounded animal backed into a corner, and he was ready to give up basically.
Yeah.
But I mean that's still what made him dangerous. But it wasn't shown to be like a superpower. Like, because he talks about that in his speech with Lady Deathstrike, when he's like, I'm a mutant, but all this stuff was done to me. I didn't choose to have it. I would prefer to be a normal human being, and you gave that all up to become a monster. Right. You're the crazy person. I have to live with this.
That's the difference between me and you, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this issue does that so well, where it's like as I was saying, it's so easy to glorify tough, crazy Wolverine, and it's a lot of people don't associate with, or they just don't think to really remember or hammer home the point that going feral is not a good thing for Wolverine. It's really terrible. He hates it. Yeah. It tears him up inside because he's not a man.
It's literally like frying his brain out.
Exactly. Yeah, he doesn't like that, and he wants to regain his peace and sanity, and in this issue, it spells that out pretty clearly.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting character trait too that he's always kind of got to deal with that. He's never going to get rid of it. It's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean that's what makes Wolverine Wolverine. That's why he's went on to single-handedly become the most popular X-Men character of all time.
Well, the thing is though, this is when Wolverine was good. Then they made, I don't know what they did to him in the '90s. They kind of, I don't know, they made him taller and they wussed him out, made him right. Talk about his feelings and stuff like that.
Hugh Jackman made him even taller.
I don't want to go there.
We talked. Yeah, we're not going there. But we talked about this in the Weapon X podcast. Pretty much throughout Wolverine's continuity, once they pull the adamantium out of him, I don't know. That's where it all starts to kind of go off the rails. Because then they start, you get all the bone claws, which was weird, and it's tough. It's tough because I understand you can't just string this whole mystery man thing forever. Well, I actually think you probably could, but I understand why you wouldn't want to. And you can't just keep having mysterious things from his past show up. At a certain point, there has to be a past.
Yeah,
it has to be addressed, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's why they did their full-on origins and the Wolverine Origins miniseries in 2000 something. Which spelled out exactly when he was born and exactly what his powers are and exactly who his family is. I don't really like that. Mostly because I understand people get obsessive about continuity, and that's why you're reading these books, because you need to keep absorbing the plots and the story. But I don't like it because as a mythological character, what Wolverine represents, where he comes from doesn't matter. All that matters is that he is a man who has lost something, lost his humanity, and he's trying to get it back. So it doesn't matter who he was before. It's all about what he's doing now, and to me that's who the character of Wolverine is.
Yeah, it's kind of like learning the trick to a magic trick. You're like, oh well, now it's not so special anymore because I know how that magic trick is performed, and it takes that wonderment away.
Yeah, and it's sort of it's a pointless distraction too. I think getting the facts of who Wolverine was before he got brainwashed and became the killing machine. I don't know. That just seems so pointless. I don't need to know that. What I need to know, what I find interesting about Wolverine, the stories that everybody wants to read about Wolverine, is his struggles now. Is him trying to gain inner peace. Him trying to rebuild himself and recover. And I don't think that the past, I don't think that has anything to do with that. I don't think it's necessary. And I'm sure there are people that will disagree with me, but whatever.
Yeah, I just wish they would have kept it. I mean, as a creative writer, someone should have been able to find a way to keep it all just, mysterious and just kept them. It would have been much better character. Even if they would have killed them off 10 years ago and just kept it all mysterious still, it would still been one of the most talked about characters.
Right, the mystery kind of died.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And technically he did die in Secret Wars, except a drop of blood fell on that one crystal and brought in just materialized him again. With adamantium and everything.
There have been a few times. Huh? There have been a few times that he's died, actually. They're right now Marvel is in the middle of their big Death of Wolverine event. Yeah. I think they killed him, and of course, only in the Marvel universe can you kill a character and then put out 5 books about that character.
Batman, I don't. He broke his back, right?
He broke his back. He wasn't dead, but still, same sort of thing. We're replacing him, but not really. And there, and I'm not gonna get too snobby about the whole situation. Anybody who's reading, the Wolverine books now, they are under no illusion over what is going on. They know Wolverine's coming back, and it's Marvel knows Wolverine's coming back. That's not the point. The point is to just enjoy the stories. I get that. That's fine. I really have no problem with that. But yeah, like you said, they've been doing dramatic things to Wolverine for a long time now. The whole Death of Wolverine thing just makes me think of Wolverine 75. That was where they found out that he had the bone claws. Oh. And that was in the what was that event? The X-Men 25. Magneto rips the adamantium out of him, and they think he's going to die. And then he recovers from it, but he loses his healing. His mutant healing factor. And then in 75, he's going to prove how tough he is, so he gets into the danger room and starts fighting robots, even though he doesn't have his powers anymore, and he tries to pop his claws for some reason. Even though they're he doesn't have his claws, what is he doing? And then it's they're bone claws, and he's bleeding to death because he doesn't have a healing factor. And so they're this sucks for Wolverine. So then he goes, I quit the X-Men, I'm done. And it's just that was supposed to be a huge deal. We're really shaking things up now. That at least was I don't know.
It feels like there's real tension almost.
Yeah, there's something there. When you just go full on, just kill the character and then bring him back in some way, that just feels so.
Well, I feel when they do that, death isn't really a big motivator anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you know they're gonna come back, what's the point?
Yeah, that's the age-old struggle, the age-old discussion of superhero comics. Because the fact of the matter is, death issues, they sell more. Yeah. People bought them. Marvel wouldn't put them out if people weren't buying them.
Same thing with Superman, right? The Death of Superman probably sold gangbusters.
It did. The Death of Superman sold so much. And of course, that was right at the height of the collector's boom. And so, everybody was, flipping out. Everybody was buying, a dozen copies of the Death of Superman issue. The issue where Doomsday kills Superman. Yeah. And they were all, bagged in, pure black bags. So if these people kept them in mint condition, it's sort of this beautiful Schrodinger's cat Schrodinger's Superman situation, where they don't even know if they actually have the issue inside there. They just have DC's promise that the issue is in there. But how would you know unless you opened it? But if you opened it, you've killed the value of it. So, whoa. Yeah, that's a thinker.
It's genius, really.
But anyway, yeah, it's genius. But of course, they're all worth nothing now because, like, you know, they printed millions of copies of it, and everybody kept them in all perfect condition, expecting them to be worth millions of dollars someday.
And yet they're blank inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the lesson then was a year later, DC announced that Superman returns and Superman's alive again, and they did the same media blitz, and they said, "Oh, Superman's back now. He's not dead anymore, and we're going to print up 1 million copies of this issue, and you should all buy it because it's worth something." And everybody said, "No, thank you. I already have a dozen copies of the issue that he died in, and now you're telling me it's not actually worth anything, because I thought this was actually going to be the last issue of Superman." Those people who actually thought that were just a little bit naive. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I'm not I'm not an executive at Marvel. Like, I don't have to make these decisions about these franchises and how much money they're bringing the shareholders and how to manipulate, the fan community to whatever. That's a whole different ball game, and I want nothing to do with that. So yeah. I'm just concerned about the stories. And when you're talking about stories, I think that Uncanny X-Men 205 is hands down one of the best Wolverine stories ever put to paper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For all of the reasons we just said.
I still think, if you look at it, it has the action of like a samurai movie. You got him to tell the girl, it's like, you stay here, and then I'm going to go, what are you going to do? I'm going to go kill everybody, kind of thing.
Right. Well, and you have the duel.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's a straight-up duel at the end. They're hunting him through the whole book, and he picks off the would-be Reavers, like, one by one, and then all that's left is Lady Deathstrike, and they have their, like, stare-down
She even monologues after she gets beaten. In typical samurai movie fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Right.
Yeah. And he just walks off and leaves her there to die, or I don't think she dies, though, does she? Something happens.
No, she doesn't. Well, clearly she doesn't die. She's been a recurring character for a while now. But yeah, like he basically just cuts her up and leaves her sort of like mangled, like, but her cybernetics are going to keep her alive apparently.
Yeah.
And because she wants him to kill her.
Oh yeah.
To like bring her peace so she can honor her father's legacy, die as a warrior, that kind of a thing. And of course he won't do it because
that would give her the satisfaction.
It'd give her the satisfaction, right? And as we said, like, she's got to earn her peace, earn her humanity. Yeah, it's a real good issue. I think it's one of the most enduring issues of definitely one of the most enduring single issues of X-Men. And it's sort of like it's such a perfect, like, if you were just looking for one issue to kind of explain why Wolverine is such a lasting character, like, that is it.
Oh yeah, or the most likable X-Men. They're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and also, it's a single regular comic book, so it's just like so much happens, and it's just 22 pages. You know what I mean?
Really quick read.
It's such a it's a quick read because like I said, it's just that month's issue of X-Men, but like it's so dense. Like, there's so much going on.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think if Rob Liefeld drew that instead of Barry Windsor-Smith, do you think it'd still be an iconic comic book?
Well,
and I'm not taking anything from Rob Liefeld. He's paid his dues and he does comics, but I'm just saying, just the storytelling that Barry Windsor-Smith does in his comic is just superb.
I was going to say, it actually might be iconic, but for different reasons.
I was literally just about to say that.
For different reasons than the reason Windsor-Smith is. Because, I know how those comics were made at that time. And, although Claremont would have basically written, it would have been the same dialogue and the same narration, the pages would have looked completely different. Because Windsor-Smith's page layouts, his control of the passage of time throughout the page and between panels.
Oh yeah.
His complete mastery of the art of storytelling is very different from Rob Liefeld's, and it certainly would not have played the same. It definitely would not.
I think
have.
even if Willis Portacio, I think is that how you say his name?
I think Wills Portacio.
Portacio or Jim Lee, because they did X-Men for a while there too. I don't think they would even have the same effect on this comic as Windsor-Smith does.
Oh, definitely not. And I liked Jim Lee's X-Men a lot, actually. I liked it a lot, but yeah, it just would not have.
And Silvestri did him too. So
Yeah, Silvestri. Yeah, I liked his too, but their art, it just doesn't have I think the only way I can describe it is there's so much weight to Windsor-Smith's art. He uses heavy lines in the right places. It really just does look so.
I was gonna say organic. It just It looks effortlessly
That's a good word
too.
for it.
It looks. It's not over.
It does look effortless.
Mm-hmm. The action.
I'm sorry, Ed. I was cutting out there on the call. go ahead and just start. What were you saying about Lee? Like he had angled lines.
He had very angled lines to describe the body, and that the outside angles and stuff were like straight lines. Mm-hmm. And I think Windsor-Smith, there's like the organic. The artwork looks more organic. I would also say that the storytelling is more organic and it just looks so natural.
It does.
The portraying of action, and it's just, this is one of my most favorite comic books, and this one I remember most out of all my childhood is this one here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a clear reason why. I do think that Windsor-Smith's superhero art stood out among other comic book artists that were drawing X-Men at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they were all good artists. I think, especially at this time, there was mostly really good artists working on X-Men. But Windsor-Smith, I mean, he was just on a different level than a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
I think.
Is he British?
Yeah, he's British.
That might be why too, because I still think that the Brits and Americans still have a different. The European and Americans still have that style. I mean, look at Mobius. Look how organic his stuff is too.
Yeah, there is kind of a sense of that to Windsor-Smith's, to his art. Just the way, when you talk about it, like organic, just the way like he draws like landscapes and just like nature.
I was talking about the anatomy. Look at it.
Yeah,
I got on Google up, and I got some pages stuff of Wounded Wolf. And I'm just looking at how the body was drawn, and it just, I could definitely see maybe some Mobius influence there somehow, some way, or at least from a same schooling or something,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say so. So, Luke, any last thing you'd like to say about Wounded Wolf by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor-Smith?
That's a pretty great title. I mean, I don't think we really hit that, but it fits the...
That's a good point. It is a great title.
Yeah, but no, we pretty much covered everything I wanted to say and everything I had down in my notes. Mm-hmm. It was a stellar story, especially coming off of Weapon X. Even though now I know that we did it in the wrong order, it's
right.
Still reading Weapon X and getting familiar with Barry Windsor-Smith really made me appreciate this book a lot more than I would have just as an issue by itself. Not to say it wasn't great.
But no, I know what you mean.
Now that I know Barry Windsor-Smith, it hit me a lot harder. It was much better read than I would have initially thought.
Doesn't it just really, really make you want more Barry Windsor-Smith X-Men books?
If he did Patreon,
even just Barry Windsor-Smith Wolverine,
I'd be throwing money at him.
Oh yeah,
like $10-$20 a month. Sends me issues of comics, some sort of sketch.
Just pages.
Oh my god, I'd lose my mind.
Just show me pictures of the art.
Yeah, just send me pictures over Twitter. I'll pay for it.
Yeah, something tells me Barry Windsor-Smith's not the type of person to use Twitter or want to learn how to use Twitter.
Maybe if the right amount of money is involved.
Maybe.
I will pay you thousands of dollars to learn how to use Twitter just so you can post pictures of sketches.
Right.
But no, this book definitely made me very upset that there's not much more Barry Windsor-Smith I can go to. Like, there is, but, not along this vein. So, unfortunate, but I'm glad we got to read it.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A classic of the X-Men. Okay, so thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 18 of Comic DNA. My name is Aaron Walther. You can find me on Facebook. I am also on Twitter at AAWALTHER. That's at AAWalther. And you can also find the comics that I do at AaronWalther.com. That is my website. And you can also find some of the webcomics I've done hosted at NewHavenComics.com. Luke?
As always, you can find me on Facebook at Luke Moritz. I'm also on Twitter at Luke T. Moritz, MORITZ. You can find the episodes of Comic DNA at comicdna.podbean.com. And next episode?
for the next episode, we are. Actually, no. Before we do that, Ed, what is your website if anybody wants to go look at your cool robots?
Because I do. And, I want to look at them.
That's what you've been drawing a lot, right now.
Yeah, I'm
robots.
working on an art book for robots for Planet Comic-Con, and after that, I'm hoping. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I'm gonna. I think online's a good publishing way, and I'm looking into Patreon, but I'm thinking about starting a comic. Maybe a comic on Patreon after Planet Comic-Con. My website is edbickford.com. You can find me on Facebook as Ed Bickford, and then also or on Twitter as at Edwin Bickford. And I'm hoping to have some stuff out here soon.
Oh, that's awesome! I'm excited. I'm excited to see you do some books.
I have a story that's in being published by Arcana Comics in I think it's Steampunk Origins. Volume 7, I think, or 8, I can't remember. It's a 6-page story in there. We've tried to get into 8, but it got denied. So I'm going to put those pictures on my website soon. I'm still revamping my website, but yeah, go ahead and check out my website. I kind of put it up there because the robot pictures I'm doing, someone said it looked like the old robot pictures, so I'm kind of making it into it looks like old sci-fi pulp novel covers. So I'm hoping to have a whole book of that for Planet Comic-Con.
Oh, that'll be awesome. I will definitely have to get my hands on one, which by the time this podcast airs, hopefully I will have gotten my hands on one.
That's true. I forgot about that. So I'm hoping to have prints there as well, so we'll see.
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it was a fantastic show. Ed, it was great to see you just last weekend. I'm glad we got to hang out and share comic books, and it's just all my predictions for 2 weeks.
I know. I wish we would have dressed up as Marv and Harry from Home Alone, like you said we were gonna, but we didn't. Disappointed.
There's still time.
I don't know if I have the strength for cosplay.
Me either. I'm more of the artist. I was like, I'll make the stuff you guys can cosplay as. I don't want to be dressing up myself.
Right, exactly. I just don't have the wherewithal to do it, but God bless everybody who does.
Indeed.
So, thank you everyone for listening. Next episode, we will be joined by Derek Ferris, whom you will remember as the guest we had on the show for the Batman Elseworlds episode. Derek will be joining us to talk about another Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips comic, Sleeper, published by Wildstorm in 2004. So, thank you again for listening, and we will see you all next time.